No, Meghan is not invited to my upcoming Santa Barbara event. I have no involvement with the Epstein matter. Prince Andrew and Meghan do. She made an advance toward me. I did not respond.
Something is about to explode, and the most unsettling part, it didn't start today. It's been quietly building since 2018, locked away, hidden, and now, finally, someone is about to open the folder that was never supposed to be seen. The whispers about Meghan Markle have never really disappeared, have they? They just lingered, floating around the edges of conversations, slipping through comment sections, resurfacing every time people thought the story was over. But this time, it feels different, heavier, like something is about to land that no PR team can outrun. Because this isn't random noise anymore. This is something methodical, calculated, built piece by piece by someone who doesn't rush, doesn't guess, doesn't throw things out for attention. This is Jessica Reed Krauss, and if you've been paying even the slightest attention, you already know she doesn't move unless she's ready to hit. And that's exactly what makes this so uncomfortable, because she's been sitting on something for years, not days, not weeks, years. And then suddenly, without warning, she drops a glimpse. Not the full story, just enough to make people stop breathing mid-scroll. A folder, a literal folder, sitting there untouched since 2018. Think about that. 8 years of silence. 8 years of collecting, verifying, watching while the world moved on, distracted by headlines and red carpets and carefully curated images. 8 years, waiting. And then she cracks it open just enough to let one thing slip out. Footage. Real footage. Not rumors, not theories, something she claims she's been holding on to this entire time. And the internet? It didn't react, it ignited. Because suddenly, the old questions didn't feel so old anymore. They felt unfinished, like loose threads someone deliberately avoided pulling. It's a 4-year-old tape of a Meghan who was about to marry a prince. That line didn't just land, it echoed, because it reframed everything. It pushed the timeline back. It forced people to look at the version of Meghan Markle before the titles, before the palace walls, before the global image machine locked into place. And then came the detail that made people pause. The years before fame. The years that don't quite line up neatly. Before she was on Suits. There are years where what was she doing then? It doesn't seem like she was doing anything, but she sure was on a lot of yachts. That's not just a statement. That's a crack in the narrative. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Because here's where things stop feeling like gossip and start feeling like a pattern. The world Soho House operates in isn't just exclusive, it's designed to be unseen. No cameras, no records, no outside eyes. A place where the right people meet, away from scrutiny. And sitting right at the top of that network, Ron Burkle. A name that doesn't shout but echoes in the background of powerful circles. Now add another name, Marcus Anderson. Not just connected, embedded. The kind of connection so deep they named a wine after him. Think about that. That's not casual. That's influence. And somehow these names keep circling back. Not directly, not loudly, but consistently. Close enough to matter, quiet enough to avoid headlines. And this is where the silence becomes suspicious, because none of this is hidden. It's not buried in some secret archive. It's there, public, traceable, yet somehow untouched by mainstream coverage. No deep dives, no investigations, just nothing. Why? Why does a story with this many connections, this many overlaps, this many unanswered questions get ignored? That's not an accident. That's a decision. And while traditional media stayed quiet, something else started happening. People, regular people, started connecting dots themselves. Late nights, screens glowing, timelines being mapped, details being cross-checked. No newsroom, no funding, just curiosity and persistence. And then someone like Jessica Reed Krauss steps in and organizes it, structures it, turns scattered whispers into something cohesive, something dangerous. Meanwhile, on the surface, everything looks polished, controlled, strategic. Meghan Markle is out there, events, appearances, calculated moments designed to reinforce a narrative. The 15% pledge gala honoring Tina Knowles, on paper, it's just another appearance, another photo op. But then, something small happens. A movement, subtle but not subtle enough. She physically nudges someone out of her frame, not by accident, not gently, intentionally, because the shot mattered. That moment says more than any speech ever could, because it reveals priority. Image first, always. And when you zoom out, the pattern continues. The circle shifts, the names change. No longer surrounded by top-tier A-listers like Bianca or Kim Kardashian, those doors seem quieter now. Instead, the orbit moves toward figures like Kris Jenner and Tina Knowles, adjacent to power, not at the center of it. And that shift, it speaks volumes, because at the exact same time this carefully curated image is being pushed, something else is approaching, something older, something buried, something that has been waiting 8 years to come out. And now the question isn't whether it will surface, it's what happens when it does. And here's where everything starts to feel uncomfortably synchronized, because while that buried folder inches closer to opening, the machinery around Meghan Markle isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Appearances carefully timed, photos strategically released, narratives polished and pushed out like nothing is coming. But that's the thing about pressure, you don't always see it, you feel it building underneath. Because suddenly, the PR machine isn't just active, it's aggressive. The return of Sunshine Sachs isn't a coincidence. It never is. That firm doesn't step in unless there's something worth controlling, something worth shaping before it spirals. And if you've watched how they operate before, you already know they don't play defense. They preempt. They flood the space before anything else can fill it. So ask yourself, why now? Why bring in heavy narrative control at the exact moment an 8-year investigation is about to surface? Because timing like that doesn't happen by accident. It collides, and collisions expose things. At the same time, the cracks in the outer image are becoming harder to ignore. The business ventures that were supposed to redefine everything, they didn't land the way they were supposed to. The lifestyle branding, the products, the buzz, it flared up and then faded. No real momentum, no lasting impact. And no matter how many cameras are pointed in her direction, you can't manufacture success out of visibility alone, because visibility without substance eventually starts to feel hollow, and people notice that. But maybe the most uncomfortable layer of all this isn't the business, it's the positioning. The constant presence at charity events, galas, causes that look meaningful on paper. But when you really watch closely, it feels different. Less like commitment, more like proximity, like networking wrapped in something noble. And that contrast becomes impossible to ignore when you think about Princess Diana, because she didn't choose the glamorous rooms. She walked into the uncomfortable ones, the forgotten ones, the ones nobody wanted cameras in. That wasn't strategy, that was conviction. And when you place that side by side with what we're seeing now, the difference isn't subtle, it's glaring. Meanwhile, away from the spotlight, another layer of the story is unfolding quietly, almost too quietly. The lives connected to this world, the extended royal circle, they aren't untouched by pressure either. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, two names that have always existed slightly outside the center, but never completely free of it. And right now, things around them feel fragile. There are whispers about Beatrice pulling back, about routines breaking down, about a life that isn't as stable as it appears from the outside. Nothing loud, nothing confirmed in the way headlines demand, just patterns. Enough to make people close to the situation uneasy. And when someone retreats like that, when their world shrinks to a small circle, it usually means something heavier is happening beneath the surface. At the same time, Eugenie is moving in the opposite direction. Visible, present, working, seen in places like Qatar, stepping into roles tied to art and culture. On paper, it looks like progress, like forward motion. But even that carries a strange weight when you consider the timing, because visibility can also be intentional, a re-entry, a reminder that everything is still under control. But is it? Because underneath all of this sits a question that refuses to disappear. How much of this world, the access, the positions, the opportunities, exists because of what was built, and how much exists because of the name attached to it? That question doesn't get asked out loud very often, but it lingers quietly, persistently. And that's the theme running through everything right now. Questions that were never fully answered. Questions that were pushed aside, ignored, smoothed over, until someone decided to stop looking away. Which brings everything back to that folder, that quiet, untouched folder from 2018. Because here's the part that should make you pause. The person behind it didn't treat this like content, not like a trend, not like something to capitalize on quickly and move past. This was years of collecting, years of verifying, years of waiting while the world forgot to ask certain questions. That kind of patience only comes from one place: certainty. Because you don't sit on something for 8 years unless you believe completely that when it comes out, it will matter. And right now, everything feels like it's aligning toward that moment. On one side, a meticulously built investigation that has been quietly growing stronger with time. On the other, a carefully controlled public image that is working overtime to hold its shape. And those two forces, they are moving directly toward each other. So what happens when they meet? What happens when something that has been hidden, layered, and protected protected for nearly a decade suddenly gets pulled into the open? What details actually surface? What connections suddenly make sense in a way they didn't before? And more importantly, what can't be explained away once people start looking closer? Because that's the real tension here. Not the rumors, not the speculation, the possibility that something concrete, something undeniable has been sitting just out of reach this entire time. And if that's true, then everything we're watching right now, the appearances, the PR moves, the carefully timed visibility, it's not random. It's preparation for impact. The kind of impact that doesn't just create headlines, it rewrites narratives. And maybe that's why this feels different. Not louder, not flashier, just heavier, like something inevitable is approaching and no amount of control can fully contain it once it lands. Because once that folder opens, it doesn't close again. And whatever is inside it, it's been waiting 8 years to be seen. And now it finally will be.